Welcome to the Rational Optimist podcast. We must start by talking about Neuralink's third patient, Brad Smith.
Yeah, so Brad Smith, as you said, Neuralink's third patient, he released a video he made, he edited, he narrated the whole shebang. The amazing thing about what I just said is this is a guy who has ALS. This is a guy who can only move his eyes. He is stuck in a wheelchair. He's actually been stuck in a dark room, basically unable to communicate with anyone over the past couple of years. Came out, made this video, shocked the world. Ashley Vance over at Core Memories had a great video and documentary about his whole journey as well. And I got to be honest, watching Ashley's video, watching the video Brad put together, narrated, edited the whole lot, I honestly had an existential crisis because just like me, Brad is a father of three, and I was thinking to myself, what would happen? What would I do if I got this disease? And it's just awful. It's just horrific. But it does take a very optimistic turn because he's Neuralink's third patient.
Yeah, the story of how he realized he had ALS was just crazy. He hurt his shoulder, and it took a while to heal. And eventually, the doctors, test after test, they said, you might have ALS. And ALS slowly paralyzes you until you can move nothing but your eyes. So the big difference, we've covered Nolan Arbaugh before, who was the first Neuralink patient, who had successful implant as well, but he could talk. He can move his face. He used to be able to, before he got Neuralink, he could control an iPad with like a stick that he poked at the iPad with his mouth that controlled the stick. The third patient, Brad Smith, completely paralyzed, as you said, except for his eyes. So he used to use, before Neuralink, he used an eye tracking system made by Tobii. Remember Tobii?
We know it well.
Used by Tobii, that it tracked his eyes and it could like select the cursor or move the mouse, and it worked. It was a miraculous technology in its own way, but it was very slow, and it could basically only work inside where it was dark. So his family lovingly and jokingly called him Batman, Brad Smith, because he could basically only exist inside in the dark. And one thing that Neuralink's done that's improved his life immensely is now he can go outside. Now he can go outside with his kids and go to sports games and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's let me just show you a picture of the little chip here. It's cool. I love the way it's holding it in this picture. That's basically Neuralink's chip, which is inserted inside the brain, and essentially now Brad can turn his thoughts. He can just think, move the cursor left, move the cursor right, or play the video games with his kids, like, hey, Mario Kart, move left, move right, go ahead. He can just think that, and it translates it into digital actions. So now telepathy is real. And that's big. That's absolutely amazing for a man who can only move his eyes. And I loved the part of the story where essentially right now Neuralink, it's kind of like this boutique service that they have to go, and the Neuralink engineers have to go out and spend time with this person. And obviously, as you said, getting this to work for someone who can speak and move their full head is very, very different than getting it to work for a man that can only move his eyes. So the Neuralink essentially figured out how, if Brad clenches his jaw, it means this. If Brad moves his tongue, it moves that, or does that. So it was quite amazing to hear how they put the chip in his brain and then they engineer it to do all these amazing things around his limitations.
I was going to say, the parts of the article that were most interesting is that you don't just put it in your head and now you can move like the cursor telepathically. You put it in the head and most of the stuff doesn't work. And then the Neuralink engineers have to train you up, and like you have to learn how to use it. And it's not an easy thing to do, but they've, in addition to letting him control computers and create and narrate videos with his voice, he can control a webcam, so he can't move his head. So if he's staring at a screen, that's the only place he can look. He can control a webcam so it could turn, and he can have like a bigger field of view. And they gave him his voice back because the family had recordings of his voice from before he was paralyzed with ALS, and they were able to build an AI system. 11 Labs, who we've talked about before, built the AI system, and he can now talk in his original voice. If you listen to the video, he doesn't sound like a computer. He sounds 99% like a real human voice.
We'll go to the voice and what this is going to enable when all these ideas have sex in a minute. But basically, it sounds kind of like what you said about putting the chip in the brain. It kind of doesn't work, and you have to train it. It seems almost not worth the effort. It's a lot of effort. How are you ever going to scale this product? Something that we often repeat at the Rational Optimist Society is this is the worst it was ever going to be. We're talking about this brain chip in Brad's head like it's revolutionary, and it is. But I guarantee you it's primitive compared to what's coming. We're going to be talking about Neuralink in 5 years, and thousands of people are hopefully going to have this, and it will just slot into your head and instantly work like that because the technology is just going to get so much better. I also think about this. Of course, this starts at the fringe, as it should, helping the people that need it the most. But I think in 20 or 30 years, it actually might be as normal. Like you might just go to the doctor and get this put in your brain. And I think about Tesla has these things, software updates, right? Over the air software updates. The idea that you could update a car like over the air, like you update your iPhone 20 years ago, would have been absolutely bonkers. Like, what do you mean my car can get better? Whereas Tesla had this recent thing during the California wildfires, and it essentially turned the car into this giant air filter, right? Just for cars in California. Amazing. What about if we could do software updates for the brain? If you could have a little Neuralink chip in your brain and you get a notification saying, you've just learned Spanish or whatever. Just some crazy stuff.
There's a scene in the Matrix about that. I just learned Kung Fu.
Right. So stuff like that is pretty incredible. And it's great, and it's awesome to talk about sexy ideas and disruptions like skyscraper sized rockets and all this stuff. But man, this stuff, technology alleviating human suffering and helping people, that's honestly amazing. And it moves me more than anything else.
Same here. Here's some creative destruction for you. We mentioned Toby. It was a company we followed way back in the day. Must have been 2018, 2019.
2019.
A stock that you recommended in our other business. And it did well, but it's now a 20-cent stock because, I mean, you can imagine Neuralink's going to disrupt it.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you another bit of disruption later. But you mentioned 11 Labs. And I think, our friend, the original Rational Optimist, Matt Ridley, has this phrase, this metaphor, ideas having sex. And it's basically when, two innovations come together and they can create something even more magical than being on their own. And Neuralink in its own right is Mount Rushmore level innovation, right? Incredible. But now, in the case of Brad Smith, they combined it with AI voice cloning. Okay. So now he can basically think something in his head, and he can, through with the Neuralink chip, it translates that into words on the screen. And then 11 Labs, using a clone of his own voice, not a robotic voice, his own voice, can turn that into words. So he can actually have conversations again, which is incredible.
The other part of the story I loved is he had wanted to take part in an experimental like Neuralink type thing for a while, but he couldn't travel at all. And he assumed the surgeries were only in San Francisco and Austin. And he randomly heard on a podcast that this was being offered in a town near him. And so it just goes to show you, as the technology gets better, it's going to be available in many more places. And how many millions of paralyzed people are out there who this could benefit? Right now, it's nascent, but as it grows, it's going to change so many lives.
Yeah. And there's one of the things that I think is most important about Elon is he has this track record of starting some crazy new business. He hires really smart people to work in that business, teaches them, how to innovate, how to manufacture, how to build, all those type of things. And then a decade later, those people leave, Elon's company and they go start their own thing. So Neuralink was this crazy idea. As far as I know, no one had really tried it. And now we have, at least two really promising Neuralink competitors, So one of them is Precision Neuroscience, neuroscience. They basically have something similar to Neuralink's brain chip, except it's almost like a postage stamp. It's thinner than a human hair. Just fitted it with on a 63-year-old man with Parkinson's disease, and he was able to, when he thought about moving his trembling hand, he was able to move a nearby robotic arm. So again, you know, brain chip in the brain controlling something outside the brain. And then there's a company called Science, which essentially again used a chip in the eye in this case to help blind people see, which sounds like something from the Bible, but it's actually real now.
Man, I can't wait to see where this goes. I hope it goes fast. So Nolan was first. This guy was third. We never talked about the second patient. I guess that wasn't publicized.
The second patient, is all I know about him because Nolan talked about it, was that he was able to control a robotic arm with the brain chip, which again is kind of like the science guy that I just mentioned. And I think this opens up a very interesting path, because we talked about, okay, what happens when you combine brain chips with AI voice cloning? That's cool, right? You know what's even cooler? If you get a brain chip and now you can combine it with robotics, because then you can essentially eliminate paralysis. And we met a founder, Tyler Hayes of Atom Bodies. Shout out Tyler, who was kind of working on this. He's not integrating with Neuralink. He's working on his own thing of essentially limbs, starting with arms, eventually moving to legs and spines, that can be controlled by your muscles basically. So even if you have a stump of an arm, it can read the electronic signals in your arm and create a full working arm for you. No, nothing. So it's basically, as I said, even if you have a stump to the arm up to here or in your leg or whatever, it just reads the signals, non-invasive, which is even more impressive, I guess. So yeah, something like, you can imagine something like that in its own right is going to be incredible. And I really love what the company is doing. But if you combine that with something like Neuralink, you could imagine maybe in 20 or 30 years, someone like Brad is actually able to walk, because he has that chip in his brain and he has a full exoskeleton. I think it was last year, someone carrying the Olympic torch. They basically fit this guy with an exoskeleton. He was completely paralyzed and he was able to walk through the streets of Paris or wherever it was, with the Olympic torch. So more of that is coming.
Should we move on to SMRs?
SMRs. Lots going on in SMRs.
The first The first SMR in the U.S. is finally under construction. Finally. Though, you know where the only existing SMRs have been built so far in the world? Or 2 countries. Do you want to guess?
I'm going to say the Axis powers, the China and Russia.
Oh, you knew. That's not fair. But now we finally have one. Now we finally have one under construction in the U.S. It's a research reactor in Texas, of course. Texas leads in all forms of energy: oil and gas, solar, now nuclear. But it's a research reactor at Texas Abilene University, and yeah, it should be the first working SMR in the U.S.
I always find it funny when you never hear about something in your life, and then within a couple of months or weeks or even days, you hear about, a town and an idea, whatever concept, like multiple times. Abilene, as you may remember, was the town that was behind Project Starlink, or Stargate. Sorry, Stargate. This big series of AI data centers that's going to be, what was it, $500 billion project or whatever the number that was thrown out, and now it's kind of the first modular reactor as well. I think it's always helpful when we talk about nuclear and SMRs to take a step back. And I have to show you favorite chart. Never gets old. So people are like, nuclear, okay, cool. It might be, it might be good in some ways, but it's dangerous, and it's dangerous, right? Well, actually, as this chart shows, it's as safe as solar, and it's actually cleaner than solar and wind. If you were to create a one graph chart, it is the safest and cleanest source of energy when you combine those two things.
And that's with 50-year-old technology that has barely improved because of regulations. Imagine how safe it could be today.
Exactly. And then why small modular reactors? Well, as you said, regulation has been a huge burden for nuclear energy, and it's made it extremely costly. The thing that holds incredible promise with SMRs is that if you can make them in a factory, they can, of course, be cheaper because you can drive down those costs over time because you learn how to do things better, faster, cheaper. There's all these examples of these days nuclear power plants. They're these huge things on the edge of town. They're one-off projects. You don't kind of get any of the efficiency gains in the small amount of cases where you've built two reactors, whether it's in the US or the UK. The second reactor is often 40, 50, 60% faster, built faster and cheaper than the first reactor, just because the engineers are like, oh, you know what? We learned that the bolts go on that way, or you can actually speed up the process that way. So that's why SMRs are incredible. Imagine you could produce 1,000 of the same reactor. That would, the reactor is just going to get better, faster, cheaper.
Kairos Power also has a permit to build a test SMR. It's Hermes test reactors. Construction is going to start soon on that, and that one's in Tennessee. As we've said many, many times, you have to say it every time you talk about nuclear and SMRs. It's the regulations holding us back. We know how to do this already. It's the regulations. So you and I visited Valor Atomics when we were in Gundo, and they have, I think we talked about this on a recent podcast, but they joined the lawsuit against the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, trying to reduce the NRC's power, because the NRC just currently regulates every aspect of nuclear, whether it's the giant concrete ones from 1970 or the SMRs today, even though they're completely different technologies. And their business model is interesting because what Isaiah Taylor, the founder of Valor, told us is that the most burdensome part of the regulations is the actual site. It's not the machinery in the SMR, it's the where it goes. And so it's really hard and really expensive to get approved to put an SMR in a place. And so SMRs in a way actually make the cost problem worse because there's more of them and you need more sites approved. So his solution is to put 1,000 of these things in one place and call it a gigasite.
Right. Yeah, super interesting approach. And I guess the other thing from him is that he wants to use that power to generate hydrocarbons, which is completely different than a lot of nuclear power companies which want to use the nuclear power to produce electricity to sell to the grid. So a completely different approach, and one that I am really bullish on after talking to him. We talked about Texas. Texas really is becoming the SMR capital of America and maybe even the world, because what you said there about the sites. The site is the hardest thing to get. I've heard a few stories where they're basically saying, hey, these existing nuclear sites in Texas, we're going to build SMRs on those sites. It's almost like they're pre-approved, and you can kind of skip a lot of the regulatory hurdles. So that's something that's, I think, a very promising approach too.
That makes a lot of sense. There's so many, there's a lot of little SMR startups, and they're all just waiting for the starting gun, right? Just waiting for the regulation, the red sea to part, so they can actually start making some progress.
Yeah, I mean, we visited Allo back last year, Allo Atomics in Austin, same deal. All of them seem to be making as much progress as they can, while figuring out the regulation.
That's what Isaiah said. He's like, our reactor's ready to turn on, but we're waiting on the approval.
I'm hopeful it's going to change, and I'll tell you why. So I'm going to show you two images, and the question that I want you to think about when you look at these two images is choose your fate. What country do you want to be? So you can see on the left, the headline is BIS block Meta's nuclear powered data center. And on the right, you can see China approves 11 new reactors. And then here's another image of actually the first commercial SMR being put into place in China. So China is ahead on SMRs right now, at least in the deployment of them. I think why I'm hopeful this is the regulation in America is going to change. Chris Wright is doing a great job as energy secretary, but I believe there's never been a reason to move faster until now. But now when you say China is moving ahead on this really important technology, energy is the base of innovation. Oh, there's suddenly a reason to move fast. So I'm really hopeful that things do change. And it's kind of like China is like the boogeyman in Washington. It's like you try to get anything done, just mention the word China, and like the Red Sea will part, right? So that's the shortcut to getting anything done these days.
Hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. People, I worry that people look at China and they're like, oh, they get stuff done. It must be because they're have top-down command in the U.S. of the economy, whereas the U.S. is decentralized. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think the reason that the U.S. is behind, look at where the U.S. is behind China. Drones, they were essentially illegal to build in the U.S. because of the line of sight laws. SMRs, we just talked about. It's not a matter of needing command and control. It's a matter of you just got to get out of the way.
Just do the damn thing. On that very point, there's so many examples of, hey, we invent the technology and then China just actually, they don't come up with the idea, but they just run with it. So China just recently turned on the first thorium nuclear reactor, which won't get into all the jazz, but it's essentially a safer, better functioning SMR. Guess who invented that technology in the 60s? America. And then we just kind of like nestled the idea, and China basically just looked at this, whatever, 60-year-old idea and like, that's interesting, let's do it. And now they have a thorium reactor in the Gobi Desert. So move faster, guys.
Yes, yes.
Speaking of moving fast and breaking things, 62-year-old Weight Watchers. Okay, this is a company that's been around for 6 decades, way longer than me and you have been on the earth. Just filed for bankruptcy because of Ozempic. Say more.
Weight Watchers was part of my childhood. I had the snacks in my house. My mom went to the meetings. She found it very helpful, but I guess they pivoted to GLP-1s a little bit too late. So they declared bankruptcy. It's the kind of bankruptcy where they're still going to operate after the bankruptcy, but it's a restructuring. Their stock is down by more than 99%. They blame it on online fitness influencers and, of course, GLP-1 drugs. Weight Watchers actually pivoted to start offering GLP-1 drugs in October of last year, but I guess it was too little too late. I dug up some stats. A study suggests that 1 in 8 U.S. adults have already taken a GLP-1 drug, and that's with the shot version. Imagine how many people are going to take these things when the pills come out, which they're getting close to.
Yeah, I believe the actual official line for why they're shutting down is Weight Watchers shutting down rapidly evolving weight management landscape. That, my friends, is corporate gobbly speak for everyone is on Ozempic. I think of Ozempic as the Palantir of weight loss. So Palantir post 9/11 was like, hey, we actually have to invent a business here because there's two solutions. There's like don't do anything and terrorists just run wild, or clamp down on everything, and it's like then the airports are a nightmare to get through. The NSA is listening to all our phone calls. Let's invent a high-tech solution that keeps everyone safe while protecting civil liberties. I think of Ozempic as the same. It's kind of like Ozempic is our Weight Watchers was around for 60 years, and I'm sure it helped a lot of people. God bless it. But obesity only got worse over them 60 years. And here's Ozempic, call it what you will, magic injection that is helping people lose weight and everything else. So high tech solution, long Ozempic for sure.
Do you know anybody on GLP-1s?
I do, and so first, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but here in Ireland you basically can't get them unless you are severely obese. You literally cannot get them. So there's this black market in Ireland where people that go to the doctor and prescribe them, they sell them on the black market. So it's like huge. Man, they should be hold on. They should be handing these things out. The government, I'm not a fan of government spending, right? The small government, yeah, great. The government should be spending billions of dollars handing these out to everyone. Not just obese people, but some of, we've talked about it before, but first we figured out these were great for treating diabetics, yay. Then we figured out they help people lose weight. And now there's a whole list of other studies that get into how they reduce cancers, heart attacks, strokes, cardiovascular death. A VA study showed a 12% reduction in Alzheimer's disease for people on these drugs. These are wonder drugs that help with basically every disease under the sun. So I don't see why you are not handing out to every man, woman, and not to children, not to kids.
Yeah, it's like an open secret in the US. You know, a lot of people who look completely different than they did 6 months ago, so they probably take them. But unless you know them like closely and personally, you don't necessarily know if they're taking it. But yeah, it's transforming society for sure.
What would America look like if it was thinner, less diabetic, less addicted, with lower rates of heart disease, Alzheimer's, and kidney failure? Be a healthier America, be a better America, wouldn't it? Be a better world.
Yeah, it's one of the top 3 biggest problems facing America is obesity, and it's the long-term chart of obesity is actually promising because it's been rising for 50 years. Finally, it plateaued and started moving down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and again, these things are it's not just obesity, it's not just diabetes, it's all these other ailments now. And I think, I almost wonder will we shift back to, I remember reading history, and it was basically if you had a tan back in the 17 or 1800s, you were considered lower class because it meant you were out in the fields, working all day. Whereas people inside could have a lovely pale complexion. I almost wonder, will everyone get so skinny and beautiful looking that the high status thing will be in 30 years will be to be fat again? Because things have a funny way of flipping around. But yeah, these are wonder drugs. I mean, the government should be handing these things out. It should, hands down. I'd vote for that.
Got a dose of innovation, optimism for us.
Before we invest for a living, right? And
Yes.
before we get there, I want to show you a chart. So Novo Nordisk, company that invented, Ozempic, which is the most widely used GLP-1. I want to show you 3 charts related to, I think you buy this thing. So here's a chart of its quarterly growth. You can see it's come off a bit, but it's still growing 20% quarter over quarter. Here's its stock price. I guess it kind of bounced where it needed to bounce at those former, 2021 highs. And here's its valuation, 5-year low. I think if you believe in GLP-1s, you buy that chart.
All right, I can get on board with that. I don't know enough about how the intellectual property works, though. Aren't there a lot of competitors?
There's a lot of competitors, but I feel like there might be some brand value here. It's kind of like there's loads of search engines, but we all say Google.
Yeah.
I feel at least nobody I know says GLP-1s or semaglutide. It's all Ozempic.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. And you know what? From talking here in Ireland, there's so many markets that you still can't get these things. You have to buy them on the black market. So what happens if you just open it up? Potentially interesting. But innovation of the week. So we always talk about Waymo, self-driving cars. Yay, they're rolling out everywhere. Everyone forgot about self-driving trucks. So Aurora just became the first company to launch a fully driverless truck service on public roads in America. So now they're autonomous, heavy-duty, 18-wheelers. They're hauling freight between Dallas and Houston. No safety driver on board. And again, this is something that's been in the works for years. So they've had over 10,000 supervised loads, 3 million autonomous miles, which includes 1,200 miles of true driverless operation without a safety driver. So the self-driving cars are here. The self-driving trucks are here. It's going to be awesome.
Of course, it's happening in Texas. I didn't know they didn't have safety drivers. That's pretty incredible. They even do the last mile. I can understand the highway, but the last mile, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I assume so. I think what will, you could see a case where the highways are automated, but then, when you come off the highway to go to your final destination, human drivers take over or something like that. But yeah, it's fully autonomous now. Texas is, I didn't mention this. What I love about America is that you have 50 little individual experiments because the states are all running a lot of policy. So, Texas says, hey, come innovate here. Launch the self-driving trucks. do self-driving cars, do the SMRs, do the fracking, see how it turns out. And of course, a lot of places in Texas are booming. Austin says, you know what, guys, come in and build houses here. What happens? House prices go down, rent prices go down. Bullish Texas.
Viewers, you can boost our optimism by hitting the subscribe button, ringing that bell, and leaving us a comment. This greatly helps our channel grow. We appreciate all of your support.